And I just want to share with council, I think most members on council are aware, but the weekend before last, over the July 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th kind of time frame, our Coaldale Fire Department was extremely busy, and they responded to a large hay stack fire over the weekend, and they spent a number of hours. They spent about 14 3/4 hours on scene with that, and then they had a number of other calls. So in that time frame, the firefighter hours were 174.25, and the number of firefighters involved were 45. So that was a real onerous weekend for our fire department and the people that volunteer to keep Coaldale safe and our surrounding area. So on behalf of council, I just want to make a big shout out to those dedicated frontline responders that are representing us so well and keeping the Coaldale area so safe. So hats off to those people, and I'm sure council joins in with me with that as well. On the phone, we have Councillor Simpson. She's dialed in to the meeting. She isn't able to be with us in person today, but she's here on the teleconference line, and so she will have to respond to each question verbally with an affirmative or negative response, however is appropriate. And so with that, I will move on to conflict of interest, item 1.1. Are there any members of council that have any items that give rise to pecuniary interest or conflict of interest today? Councillor Simpson, is there anything?
I do not have anything, thank you though.
Okay, thank you. So there are no conflicts of interest that have been declared, so we'll move on. So we have the agenda before us, and I would call for a motion to adopt the agenda if you so choose.
Move.
Councillor Holm moves the adoption of the agenda as presented. I'll call the question. All in favor? And Councillor Simpson? Are you in favor? Councillor Simpson? Blink once if you sounds like we lost the connection. We'll just pause to reconnect.
Hello?
Hi, sorry about that. Are we going to have an issue, do you think, or?
I can hear you guys. You guys just couldn't hear me.
Okay, all right.
So, but I'm in favor of accepting the agenda.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. All right, so we'll move on then. And we have item 3.1, regular council meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2020. Any errors or omissions? Councillor Holm?
Accept the June 22nd minutes as presented.
Councillor Holm moves to accept the minutes as presented. All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Then we had item 4.1, property tax collection update. Kyle?
Okay, good evening, everybody. So we have the property tax update. This is to provide council with an update regarding the amounts collected and the related financial impact from the COVID-19 property tax deferral. So on March 30th, 2020, at the council meeting, council made the motion to adjust the property tax due date from June 30th to September 30th for 2020 in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. For 2020, a total of $11.6 million in property taxes was levied over the town of Coaldale. After adjusting for our monthly installment payment plan, There is a total balance owing on July 1st, $5.5 million. It's approximately 47% of the total levy. The same balance owing as of July 1st, 2019 was $800,000, so 7% of the balance. As a result, when comparing 2020 to 2019, there's approximately additional $4.7 million of taxes deferred, or approximately 40% of our tax levy. Fortunately, now we're not able to provide a split between what portion of that was residential versus non-residential based on software restrictions. It's also important to note that the Alberta government has deferred the town of Coaldale's non-residential education requisition payments till the end of December. This will result in approximately $300,000 in payments the town will defer until December to the Alberta government. Other items of note, the utility deferral till the end of September, approximately $20,000 has been utilized year to date. That's a quick analysis showing the deferral of approximately $4.7 million increase from last year. Again, about 20% of our tax levy. So I will turn this over to council for discussion and questions.
Okay, I'll turn the floor over to council if they have any questions or comments. Councillor Chapman.
Worship, just a question through to Kyle. Thank you so much for bringing us up to date on this. We'll be having a council meeting the first or second Monday in September, so you'll have an update again before the 30th of September on this?
If council wishes to see an update, we can. It's not normally something we do, but with nothing is normal this time of the year, so we can definitely bring that back should council have that wish.
September, when this is all wrapped up, I guess.
Yeah, ideally, it may be better to do that. We could look at doing something at the beginning of October, if that would suffice.
Councillor Simpson, are you able to hear everything properly?
Yes, I can hear it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Kyle, for this report. So being 40% less on revenue on taxes, are we going to run into any cash flow issues before the end of September?
At this moment, we don't anticipate we're going to have any cash flow issues, but we're constantly monitoring it. One issue we are considering too is, the town does have over $17 million in reserves. Those are currently locked in at a GIC that unfortunately we can't access at the moment. So with that in mind, it's possible that depending how the summer plays out in our capital projects, if they're completed earlier than anticipated, there could be some cash flow timing, but administration, we're actively monitoring that to make sure we're watching out before anything negative happens.
Thank you.
Councillor Chapman?
I'll make a motion, but prior to the motion, just your key considerations, the $20,000 in utility payments, is that it wouldn't be normal, I suppose, at this time, but compared to last year, this is quite a considerable amount.
Each month, there's approximately $380,000 to $400,000 in utility payments, revenue generated for the town of Coaldale. So from the meeting at the end of March, when the deferral was set till today, to only have $20,000 deferred, I think it just kind of shows that the utility deferral program has not had a high uptake among residents.
Thank you very much, and I'll move to receive for information.
Okay, Councillor Chapman moves that report for information. Any discussion? I don't see any, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and Councillor Simpson? She just put her on my phone or something.
Hello?
Hi,
Hi. So I'm in favor.
you're in favor? Okay. So did the call drop or what happens? Is there, do you think we need to do a different workaround on this or?
Are you there?
Let me try a cell phone this time.
Well, we are dialing her cell phone, but yeah, I'll phone her.
Well, just to check, maybe it's on our end.
Hello?
Hi,
Hi.
you think, we'll try this and see if the connection can be maintained better that way, okay?
Okay, sounds good. I was in favor of that.
You're in favor of the report 4-1, okay? Thank you. So that's unanimous. All right, and then we're moving on to item 4.2, land acquisition update. Spencer?
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening to you and council. So the objective of this update is to provide a brief update regarding the June acquisition of the 7-Eleven lot, as it is locally known. This matter has appeared before council previously at a June 8th meeting. There was an initial update given that a offer to purchase the property had been accepted by the selling party. At that time, there were 4 main benefits that were noted regarding the acquisition of this property in particular. One would be an entrance feature for Main Street, potential for digital signage is second, temporary office spaces third, and intersectional improvements was also one of the key potential benefits. Since that time, staff has worked to collect quotations and has awarded the intersectional improvements analysis to Watt Consulting Group. They've started that work as of this week and will be finalizing the results of that work by the end of August. Administration is working closely with Watt and Alberta Transportation to ensure that any conceptual or proposed enhancements to that intersection meet Alberta Transportation's requirements and are of a benefit to the community. Conceptual designs for an entrance feature to the Main Street area are underway. However, they're not at a point where they're able to be shared as of yet, but at the first meeting in September, options regarding those conceptual entranceway features to the Main Street area will be brought to council, as will an additional update on the temporary office space and the digital signage request for expression of interest that's being prepared as well. In terms of the removal of the existing building structure on site, that's slated for demolition in the first week of August. Staff has prepared all of the required permits and approvals associated with that. And we're looking at getting some value out of the existing building or parts of the existing building, including the air conditioning units and any other components that can be purchased by a third party if they're still in good working condition for future use. In terms of financial impact, at the meeting of June 8th, the offer had been accepted, although the property hadn't been transitioned into the town's full ownership. Now that that's occurred, we can confirm that the listing price that was initially $849,000 was not the price that was paid by the town, and instead we were able to pay $379,000 for that property, which is a substantial savings compared to the initial listed price. As noted in the staff report presented at the June 8th meeting, and again here, proactive communication for this project will continue to be a focus as work continues on the site. The request for council this evening is to accept this report as information, and as soon as I've concluded here, I'm happy to take any questions that council may have on the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Spencer, for that update. I'll open the floor to council if they have any questions. Okay, and Councillor Simpson, do we still have you?
Yes,
Oh,
I
good.
think so.
Thank Thank you.
I'll make the motion to accept the report for as information.
Okay, we have a motion by Councillor Simpson to receive that report for information. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And Councillor Simpson?
In favor.
In favor, thank you. And then item 4.3.
That would be me again.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. The objective of this report is to provide council an update regarding the opening and operation of the Coaldale pool in the current COVID situation. This matter did appear before council previously at the June 11th special council meeting. Administration was directed to open the pool by June 29th if possible. I'm pleased to inform council that that has occurred, as you're likely all aware at this point. In addition to opening the pool and ensuring operation is in line with provincial requirements, staff has also worked to continue ongoing dialogue with those that have used the facility, and an FAQ-style mail-out was presented to the community as a part of the opening of the pool. That continues to be updated as more thematic and common questions come into the town office and to the community services staff and the lifeguards, so that we can keep the best and most relevant information in the hands of the community as they continue to use the facility. Certain additional steps have been taken since the initial opening of the pool, such as opening fitness classes such as Aqua Zumba and other aquatic fitness classes, as they continue to be requested by the community. And of course, this is all in an effort to ensure continued use of the facility. Administration will continue to monitor usage of the pool throughout this summer season and adjust the schedule accordingly. In terms of financial impact, we look at this from an operating and a staff time perspective. As anticipated and as shared with council at the special meeting of June 11th, the pool is currently operating at a substantial loss, trend which again was forecasted prior to this, just given all of the operating restrictions that we have to meet to be in line with COVID requirements from the province. Income from all pool bookings from June 26th, which was the first date that the pool was able to be booked for individual spots for community use, up to July 7th, included about $1,200. So that's roughly 300 visitors in 9 days, or 35 visitors per day. Variable wages, which is to say wages attributable to pool staff for the same period, were in the range of about $6,500. So revenues have likely been impacted somewhat by the poor weather that we've experienced over the past couple of weeks, but as the weather continues to improve and the sunnier days of summer are looking like they're forthcoming still, we expect that usage of the pool will continue to increase. I should note that the calculation on labor excludes non-variables, non-wage costs, such as CPP and other associated costs, such as utilities and chemicals. I'm happy to answer any questions from council, and that concludes my commentary on the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Spencer, for the update on the pool opening, and I'll open the floor to council with any questions. Councillor Chapman.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Spencer, for updating council on this. Just two quick questions on your fitness classes, such as Zumba and others. You're just charging the $4.25 per person for each class that they attend?
Through the chair to Councillor Chapman, yeah, that would be the intention, to maintain that single-use fee so that it maintains simplicity on the town side and we can continue to offer the pool without too much complexity as we go forward.
Okay. Thank you. And my final question, how are the online bookings going?
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Chapman again, my understanding is that they've been going fairly well, and that staff, the community services staff in particular, have been working hard to ensure that when people do have questions or they're unable to complete their online booking requests, they're dealt with immediately and with good results. So as far as I understand, that's going well as well.
All right. Any other questions? Councillor Lloyd? I'll just make the motion. Were you going to ask a question, Councillor Simpson?
No, I was not.
Okay, Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Lloyd moves to receive for information. Is that correct? Right. Okay. Councillor Lloyd has made a motion to receive that report for information. Any discussion, questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And Councillor Simpson?
In favor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have about 6 minutes, I guess, so we could go to the bylaw for, maybe hopefully that won't be a. Spencer, you might as well stay on a roll here and.
Certainly, thank you, Mayor. So the report before council this evening regarding the Intermunicipal Development Plan bylaw is bylaw 785-P-07-20. This is a municipal planning bylaw that is shared between the town and the county. That is to say, the same bylaw is going to go before county council, as far as I understand, later in July for consideration of first reading as well. The Town of Coaldale and Lethbridge County Intermunicipal Development Plan is maintained jointly by both municipalities, and a plan update to account for recently annexed lands and to bring the plan into alignment with the most current provincial legislation has been completed by the town and county. And the proposed amending bylaw is attached for council's review and a recommendation for first reading. This matter has appeared before council in various forums leading up to and including the dates where the annexation of land from Lethbridge County was discussed. So this has appeared in various formats since 2015, essentially, because after annexation, it's important and necessary to update a document such as this. The 2010 Intermunicipal Development Plan, which would have originally been Town Bylaw 631 and County Bylaw 1337, has certainly provided guidance on a number of community planning and development focused matters over the years. The plan guided intermunicipal discussion, specifically regarding individual subdivision and development proposals within 1.6 kilometers of the town's boundary from 2010 until now. The plan in its current form has served its purpose. Events such as the passing of the province's South Saskatchewan Regional Plan in 2014, the completion of the town's growth study in 2015, the gradual introduction of the Modernized Municipal Government Act, and the town's annexation that was approved in 2018, have necessitated the need to amend the Intermunicipal Development Plan. Other localized matters can also be accounted for through proposed amendments, such as the agreements that St. Mary River Irrigation District, the county, and the town have reached regarding regional and localized stormwater management. Ultimately, the focus of amendments provided in Bylaw 785 include updating the plan to account for the activities that have occurred up to this point. In terms of key considerations, the amendments are intended to update the IDP to align with the most current local, regional, and provincial legislation, and to ensure the plan boundary is maintained at 1.6 kilometers for the majority of the plan area, which is to say all areas around the town boundary for the intermunicipal development plan boundary should be 1.6 kilometers from boundary to boundary to ensure proper notification of subdivision and development processes as time goes on. In terms of process, the Town of Coaldale and Lethbridge County Intermunicipal Committee members have reviewed the proposed amendments and have been unanimously supportive of these amendments at the committee level. There are no financial impacts, and in terms of stakeholder engagement, in consultation with Lethbridge County, a package of information summarizing what's presented in this agenda report was mailed to all landowners in the proposed expanded intermunicipal plan area, including town landowners whose properties are adjacent to the town and county boundary. As of the date of the preparation of this report, no feedback has been received from those landowners. And as is standard procedure, the public hearing date, time, and location, once approved by council, will be advertised in the Sunny South newspaper for a minimum of 2 consecutive weeks prior to the date of the public hearing. In terms of decision options, council is respectfully requested to vote on first reading of the proposed bylaw. That concludes my comments on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any questions through to Spencer? Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Worship. Just need to find my spot here. There's just one spelling or grammatical point I wanted to address on 1.2. Well, it'd be page 27 of 87. 1.2, or so it's reading two or more councils of municipalities that are not otherwise should be required to adopt?
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Chapman, we can certainly take care of that as a part of a grammatical errors fix that we can do without need for formal amendment to the document at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I'll,
Councillor Chapman.
I'll move for first reading.
Councillor Chapman sponsors first reading of the bylaw. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and Councillor Simpson?
In favor.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Spencer.
Mayor, if I may just ask for one point of clarification. Is it also council's intention to set the public hearing date for September 14th at 5:05 p.m.?
Yes, Councillor Chapman?
Into the motion, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Councillor Chapman accepts that as a friendly amendment to the motion to include the, okay. Go ahead. He moves that we set the public hearing date at September 14th at 5:05 p.m. Okay, all in favor? And Councillor Simpson?
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, and we have our delegation here, so you and usher them in if you care to. Okay, we're pleased to welcome President Renee Van de Vendel of the Coaldale and District Chamber of Commerce and Mr. Ken Schmidt, owner of Coaldale Inn, to tonight's council meeting. And gentlemen, your information, your letters, and et cetera, were all in the information package that council has received, and you can assume that all the members of council have read it. So I'll open the floor to you and you can proceed, and thank you very much for accepting the invitation to respond to the further request for information.
Well, good evening. Thank you to all of you for taking some time to listen to us. I appreciate the format, and it's a good opportunity to exchange some thoughts. So I'm speaking strictly on behalf of the chamber. Ken will be speaking on behalf of his business and himself, obviously. As you know, we as a chamber have sent some letters to you before, and at your April meeting, we were asked to come back to you with some more information. So that's really what I've tried to do on behalf of the chamber. I'm not sure if it came across that way, but the information package that I gave you was intended to provide you with more information, and I tried to kind of think a little bit different from what you all have heard and all have seen before. You all know what the pros and the cons are. So I tried to kind of twist my brain around a little bit and come up with some statistics and some things that I had not really thought about before I really got involved in it. So I think one of the things that really threw me for a loop is when I first got into this, I thought, okay, I want to see the exact wording that the town has in place that disallows the use of VLTs. And I couldn't find anything. I could find most bylaws somewhere, and I couldn't find anything that has anything to do with VLTs in an official matter. So I've approached administration, Kaylin, and I forget who helped you. Oh, there you go, you did. And we found out that there is no such bylaw that says you are not allowed to use VLTs in this town. So dig a little bit deeper and I found out that it actually was regulated by the province. So even through the province, I was not able to find anything that really expresses how the situation sits. And in my brain, I just kind of went, well, and I'm going to say something really dangerous. That's not at all what we're trying to do. But if you had to defend your position in court, what sort of documentation would you use for that? And we're not talking about court. It's just the way that my brain kind of got to the okay, how do you stand on this? Where's the legal document that supports the VLT issue? And I couldn't find anything. So finally, I approached AGLC, and after talking to many different people there, they were able to find some of the stuff that I was looking for. So it's everything is regulated through the Gaming and Liquor Act, which I wasn't aware of. So just that exercise was really helpful for myself to kind of see how this all came about. So that in itself I found very interesting, and then I got digging into some other things that you all see in front of you. I don't think there's any point in me highlighting anything or you know, talking about anything, because it's all there, and you've seen all of this, a lot of this before. So rather than taking up your time, here's the information that the chamber provided, and I think I wouldn't mind if Ken can maybe speak a little more to the particulars to his business.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. Appreciate that very much. And I know we've been through this before. I don't have a lot to add to what Renee has presented. He's done such an excellent job of researching all of this and getting his documentation and facts and figures together to support our endeavor to get VLTs reinstated into the town. And I think I'd like to kind of reverse the situation and ask you that if you have any concerns or questions that I might be able to resolve any issues that you have personally that you would like to bring to our attention possibly, that's what I would like to do tonight, is answer any questions that you may have.
Does anybody wish to go ahead? Councilor Holm?
Your worship. The only one question I did have, and it's directly to the chamber, is do you have any statistics or any background information on how many businesses that would be eligible for VLTs would be in Coaldale? And secondly, how many businesses have failed since VLTs were taken out of Coaldale over and over? As in, how many times the Coaldale Motor Inn changed hands prior to when VLTs were available, since they were? The Ventura, prior to and since then. Is it, I'm trying to get in my own mind whether, because of proximity of Coaldale to Lethbridge, whether VLTs is actually part of a business case and a model that needs to be put in place to allow these businesses to thrive and continue to operate in the town of Coaldale.
Thank you. So the closest that I've been able to get to that information, and let me say why. There is a lot of data missing, historical data on the chamber side. So I wasn't able to find records of memberships and who was where at what time. But as close as we could trace back since the decision was made to ban VLTs. My understanding is that the Coaldale Inn in particular is now in it's changed hands 5 times, so Ken will be the 6th owner since that time, or operator. I think there might have been one situation where somebody leased the premises. The Ventura at this point is no longer operating. So at this point there's only 2 businesses in town where VLTs might be considered by the AGLC. That's obviously the Coaldale Inn and McLennan's. Right, there used to be 3 with the Ventura, that's no longer there. The other question you asked, what you started with, is if there's data on. I think that's about it, right?
That'll part, just I want to get in my own mind whether it is a business case decision.
If I can add one other thing to that, and I have to be very careful, because I was told some information that was, I was asked not to share names, so I don't know if it's fair to put that on the table, but I was told that there was one business that was looking at locating a lounge type of an operation to Coaldale a few years ago and chose not to because there's a ban on VLTs. Now, put that the way I put it.
Excuse me, Roger, could I just add something to that too? Anybody that holds a current liquor license is eligible to apply for VLTs. So any other restaurant in town would be eligible to apply. You just get a different designation on their license.
So Renee, it's just for my mind, your I just wanted to get clarity. You put quite an impressive stat in here about a survey that the chamber did in June of this year of its members, and you said 70% were supportive of VLTs and 30% weren't. So can you enlighten me as to sort of the number of respondents in that? What was that, 10 surveys altogether and 7 yes and 3 no, or is it, what kind of numbers are we looking at?
So the survey went out to members in good standing, and that was 97 at the time, and I believe we had 22 respondents, so that's 24% response, which is fairly typical of these kind of questionnaires. I had hoped for a little bit higher number. Obviously we always do, just like with your election, you want to see bigger turnout, but that's where we were at.
Right. See, I'll just speak from my own personal perspective. I don't necessarily have an issue with VLTs per se, but the one issue that I do kind of guard is the fact that there's been 2 plebiscites, and what I'm looking at is some fundamental overwhelming some evidence that would suggest that council has an overwhelming case to disregard the plebiscite and that. And I know in your response you address the narrow margin of change in the plebiscite and whatnot, and that is what it is, I guess. I mean, there's many Americans that probably have the same feeling when Mr. Bush ended up in the White House over a hanging Chad and things like that. So failing a different way of recording ballots and that, a majority is sort of a majority kind of thing, and it's hard to, the way I'm looking at it is, the plebiscite of 2017 was really a question, do you want to maintain the status quo or change it? And I didn't, the results didn't seem to resonate with me, that there was a preponderance of people that wanted to change kind of thing. That most people, like you say in your report on even the chamber members, it wasn't as burning of an issue even, that really drove them to hitting send on their keyboard kind of thing. So, that personally is the thing that I feel I have to reconcile in my mind about, what council does with regard to plebiscites and the will of the people kind of thing. So.
Just a reminder, Your Worship, on that there was a survey done as well in 2017, and that indicated that 75% were in favor. So, plus in the plebiscite, we lost by 13 votes, and there was only a 34% turnout. So that's somewhat skewed as well.
But, you know, like I say, in the absence of any other way of measuring public support or dissupport for something, I'm not sure how, you know, in the democratic world that you can, you know, kind of disregard, you know, whatever that is kind of thing. But, you know, that's just my issue. And Councillor Avery has his light on, so perhaps he has a question.
Thank you, Worship. And just to, you know, to go back to the 70 or 75% by the phone, when we asked who was called, because a lot of the residents said that they weren't called, there was no confirmation that those calls were even coming to Coaldale residents. They could have been county residents or Lethbridge residents. Like they just took a group of cell phone numbers or a group of numbers. So we didn't know if that was Coaldale residents. And then at the vote, even though it was a small margin, they still voted to keep it the way it was with not having VLTs. So we need to respect the majority, even though it was a small majority, with the way and respect what they voted. If it was the other way, the vote was 13 votes the other way, and we had a group of 100 people coming in saying they wanted us to change it, what would the business's response be then if it was a church group that came in and said, we're not in favor of that, we want you to vote against that? So what would the chambers and the businesses' approach be to council on that if it was 13 votes the other way?
It's a good question, and I must admit that I have personally struggled with the entire concept, but wearing the hat of president of the chamber, we do not speak on behalf of churches, we speak on behalf of businesses. And that represents free enterprise, or that's what the motto is. And so for me, it's pretty simple. We support a business. We don't support a church or another community group. So that's my answer to you that way.
Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank your worship, and welcome to council tonight or this afternoon. There's just one point on the opinion from the Coaldale Chamber of Commerce, point 3B. You're talking about recently supporting a member's request to revisit the VLT debate was supported unanimously by the board of directors. Would you care to share with us the board of directors, and if they served as quorum, were there any minutes that were taken for that particular meeting?
Yes, so in order to answer that question, I need to give you a little bit of background to where the chamber is at. We have, up until about 6 months ago, we've had 3 different types of meetings. 1 would be a general membership meeting, 2 would be a board meeting, and 3 would be adapted a different model under which we operate. And instead of 3 different entities, we now only have 2. However, because of COVID, we were not able to ratify that decision yet through an AGM. So when I speak about board, what I really mean is the executive, what you used to know as the executive. So that's a group of 8 or 9 people. And the meeting of that executive, during the meeting of that executive, this entire issue was discussed. And we were, at that point, I was directed to send a letter that you received in April. And when your request came back for more information, again, the same body supported unanimously to do what we're doing tonight, is to provide you this information. But it is a little bit confusing because you're right in asking for a quorum. If it was the old board, you would be right that that's not the body that authorized this as such. As far as quorum goes, that was the other part of your question. We don't have any meetings that we record and hold officially without quorum. If there's no quorum, we just go home. I don't have the stats of who was all present, but it was a pretty decent representation of the executive.
So I have a I can go ahead.
Yes, please.
So you bring up staffing in your report. So what I would like to know is, on average, what are the stats for when you bring in BLTs into a business like yours, Ken? How many more staff would you need? Would it be 1 or 2? And then with that, how does that support the community in large?
Mr. Worship, would you mind repeating the question? It's hard to hear here.
Okay,
Okay.
Councilor Simpson
Okay.
was asking about staffing levels. How many more staff would be required if you were allowed a license for VLTs, and what economic impact would that result in? Is that the question, Councilor Simpson?
Yeah, somewhat. What are, like, I know he won't know exactly, but what are kind of the average stats for this once BLTs are brought in? And then what's the community impact? So you have more people hired, more likely, but do they find that there's more money going into the community through sponsorship, through the business, because they're doing better?
Do you hear that?
I understand most of it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that there's specific stats on that, but typically, and let me backtrack a little bit. First of all, if we were successful in this endeavor, we would only get 3 machines to start with. So that typically would require 1 extra person per shift throughout the day and night. So 2 people per day to look after the VLT portion of the business. As things develop, like I expect they would, we would eventually get more machines and hopefully hire more people. But there is a spin-off to all of this, and that is not only do these people play, they don't come in and play VLTs and then go home. There's more to it. They stay for dinner, they stay for overnight, they stay and have a couple of drinks, and that requires staff as well. So it becomes more tangible than what we're talking about it. And that remains to be seen, how many machines we actually do end up with over the years.
Does that answer your question, Councilor Simpson?
Yes, and then I have one more question.
Okay.
So if VLTs were brought in, as spoken before, other businesses may want to come to Coaldale with VLTs being allowed in. How do you feel about the competition for your business due to the VLTs being allowed?
I'm sorry, I just don't get that.
So Councilor Simpson is hypothesizing that if Coaldale allows VLTs in the municipality, that there might be other businesses that would introduce VLTs to their business model, and would that represent competition to your business, and or how would you view that?
Well, you're right. You're absolutely right. I have no control over that. And when the gates are open, they're open. So anybody can apply. Like I say, they have to have the proper licensing, and they can apply, and it would create more business, or more competition. But I think it would create more business throughout the community, not just for me, and not just for the venues that have the VLTs, but for the entire community, business community, where people stop over, stay over. And again, we've talked about this before, buy their products in town, shop in town, et cetera. So it's a bigger picture, and we focus on just VLTs, but it is a bigger picture than that.
Councilor Holm?
Thank you, Your Worship. I really do struggle with this, because I'm pro-business in the town of Coaldale. I think just with your comments on the number of times the Coaldale Motor Inn has changed hands, that to me looks like it's a failing model. It has been a completely failing model for the last 20 years, 25 years since this has not been there, because you're in competition with Tabor, with Picture Butte, and with Lethbridge. So I don't want to put my own social values onto it. I think I've spoken very publicly in the past on when we talked about cannabis sales. If it's legal in Alberta, and they have some decisions that are made in Alberta as to this is what the requirements are, then I, for a business person in Coaldale and wanting to bring business to Coaldale, would support whatever those rules are. I'm the same way in this one. If VLTs are legal in Alberta, They have some legal requirements, no different than liquor stores, no different than bars, no different than selling cigarettes. They've all got some social values to them that you could be for, you could be against. But me as a business person or wanting to bring business to Coaldale, I'm not going to put my own social values on a decision like this. So from my perspective, we had a 50-50, almost dead even plebiscite, which I think we all know that if you have a plebiscite vote, those who are totally against it will all be there to vote. Those who are totally for it will all be there to vote. And the vast majority don't care because we only had less than 40% of the citizens of Coaldale even came to vote for us. So if you've got that few of people that actually are caring about some of these issues, then I think it's up to us, the council, to look and say, do our social values mean more than businesses to Coaldale? So I'm totally in favor of letting these type of businesses come to Coaldale. Thank you.
Councilman Chapman?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just a few more points from the Chamber's presentation, and Councillor Simpson did point out very eloquently the point of competition, and I guess that's one of the things when you're to raise, especially if you're sort of like the monopoly in town in terms of the overall perspective. And I have to thank Ken Schmidt for your injection of your time, money, and love for the business when you came to Coaldale in 2015-16, and realizing that when you came to Coaldale that you knew that there were no VLTs at the time, and you prodded ahead and revived a very failing business outside of the VLT industry. And I'll say quite clearly as well that prior to you coming, that neither of the two hotels in town had put really invested any money into their enterprises up to your time when you came. So I want to thank you for your devotion of love in that area. To the Chamber, there's a couple of points in here that I do question as well, and 5C, you're asking the question if they're forcing people to go to Lethbridge for amenities we do not have and run the risk of losing them as residents altogether. The fact being that since 1998, when VLTs were removed from the town of Coaldale by plebiscite, that our population of Coaldale has grown considerably. And that's been in part mostly because people found this community to be a great place to live, work, and play. So since the ban on those VLTs in 1998, I've already explained that neither of the businesses had, even prior to 1998, from my observation, is that those businesses that had VLTs in there before did not try to update or improve the value of their premises. So the removal of VLTs to me really was kind of a moot point, simply because what I observed from 1998 to now, even, that improvement in businesses hasn't been shown. And that's really the reason why we're looking at rebuilding Main Street and getting the downtown revitalized. The Civic Square project is really about injecting a new phase to the downtown and to bring business. We're hearing lots about people wanting to invest in Coaldale in terms of business and office space and that. The industrial park has been a really incredible dream come true, where the industrial park has really grown. From when I first came on council, we were primarily, the tax base difference of 90% was residential and 10% was non-residential. We've been able to improve on the non-residential side. So it's been, it's done a lot of work into this. I think the final point I will make is that just overall, with the global situation the way it is in Alberta and Canada and around the world, that this may not be a good time to be bringing this type of situation, this type of business into Coaldale. And having said that, it's because of the fact that now unemployment's up at 15%. And we're going to see people looking for other alternative measures to cope with that unemployment. And I can see where gambling and other measures like that will certainly be a source of way for them to cope with their situation.
Mr. Schmidt?
Through the chair to Councillor Chapman. But Bill, excuse me, but there are other forms of gambling that are available to those same people. So you zero in on VLTs, but you open the door to all of the other forms of gambling. Why do you do that? Why do you close your mind to VLTs in particular, and yet have an open mind towards the rest of the gambling that are available to everybody in town? And plus the fact that 10 miles down the road, VLTs are sitting there waiting for citizens of Coaldale to visit. I don't understand your thought process there, if you excuse me.
Okay, thank you. Renee?
Just, I do appreciate a lot of things you said, Councillor Chapman, but, and I'm not here to debate the yes or the no's. One point of correction, when you mentioned no investment was made by the other business owners, you're incorrect. McLennan's actually did a huge expansion of their facility right after 1998, and I know that because I did the expansion. So they invested quite a bit of money there at that time. The other point about this town having grown, I think we all appreciate that this town council has had a lot to do with that, with what was it again, three for free. You know, myself, I've been involved in selling homes and stuff, and we used to have the advantage of selling a lot for $10,000 less here than the same lot in Lethbridge. That advantage is gone now, by the way. But so there was lots of reasons why this town grew, and yes, we can contribute it to all sorts of different things, including maybe what you brought up.
Thank you, because I stand corrected.
Is there any other questions of the delegation then?
I have a question too, or I guess a comment. So just with what Bill said, I've been really focusing on talking to people and asking people with the VLTs and what's their issues. And I find a lot of people honestly don't care that much. And unfortunately, I think with the plebiscite and also maybe with the phone survey, because I don't know with the phone survey, the demographics, the age groups, was everybody kind of in each age group categorized right? So I think with that, I think there's a lot of missing information for us, especially new councillors. This is our first term. So I would like to make a motion to direct administration to bring back all reports and minutes regarding the VLT topic to access all options that council has moving forward on this. I don't think really we can discuss more until we know everything.
Okay, so you get the motion, Lila? So I'll try, go ahead and then repeat it.
Okay, so to direct administration to bring back all reports and minutes regarding the VLT topic to access all option council has on moving forward on this topic.
Okay, that has that motion. Okay, so I'll ask the question, open the floor for questions. Councillor White has a question.
I have a question. Don't we usually make motions after the delegation?
Well, she's made a motion, so,
But it's not usually done in front of the delegation, so
but there's a motion on the floor, so.
it's not right.
Our typical way of doing it is not necessarily to entertain any motions from a delegation, which is what Councillor White is referring to. And but that.
I do apologize that I just didn't see anything else on the agenda, so I thought I should bring it up now, and I wanted all the information that I could be given.
Okay. I'll open the floor to discussion. Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. But just if Councillor Simpson can just emphasize a little bit more on what she's looking for, like to
So, Councillor, do you hear what Councillor Avery was asking?
He was a little bit breaking up, but he just kind of wants to know what I'm looking for, correct?
Yeah, to be a little bit more specific on what information you're looking for?
So, when this was brought up last term, I believe there was a phone survey done, and there may have been reports from administration. And I believe both sides, there was letters and information given. So, I would like to even consider this subject further. I would like to have all the information that everybody has had from recent to now, so that we could look through this and bring it up again maybe in a September meeting.
Okay. And Councillor Lloyd?
Thank you, Your Worship. We were just talking last council meeting about putting more work on our staff, and I just question whether this is something that we need to do at this time. They're quite heavily loaded with other work to do, and I'm not sure that this is what we want to do right now.
Okay.
I'm not asking them to make a new report, find new information. I'm just asking them to bring forward the stuff they've had in the past.
And our CEO has something to say?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Lloyd. A lot of this information, it's already stock material in our archives, so I appreciate the consideration for staff time in light of all the projects that are happening, but assembling this information wouldn't be a whole lot of work, given that it's labor that's already been expended in the past. We would simply just have to assimilate it into a more comprehensive document. So from a staff time perspective, it shouldn't be that big of an issue, should that be a resolution council adopts.
Okay. All right, so I'll open the floor for any further questions then. Okay, I don't see any additional questions. So at this point, I will call the question, and all those in favor. Okay, and there's Councillor Holm, Councillor Pauls, and myself in favor, and I assume Councillor Simpson?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay, Councillor Simpson is in favor, and then I'll call for opposed. All opposed? Councillor Lloyd, Chapman, and Avery. Okay, so that motion carries for the 3. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
I wonder if I can leave you with one last thing that is that okay if I?
Sure. Well, as long as it's not an explosive device, that's.
I have a fairly dear friend of mine who does go to the casino quite regularly, and I went along with him a while ago, and when you walk, I don't know if you guys have been at the casino in Lethbridge, you walk into that casino, there's hundreds of these machines, and they all look alike, and they all make noise, and they all do things. And when I started getting into this, I started realizing, so I went back to see for myself, I started realizing that in that facility, there's over 400 machines that are not VLTs, yet they look exactly the same, do exactly the same. And so I kind of made the point, what if I came up to you and I says, I'd like to start a casino in Coaldale, but I won't have VLTs in there. That's essentially what we have as a bylaw. Everything else, every other form of gambling that's happening in the casino is allowed in town, except those few machines in the very far back corner. I was shocked when I found that out. I thought they were all the same. but there's 429, I think, machines that are called slot machines, and then there's, I think, 22 or 24 machines that are called VLTs. And those are the evil ones, but they do the exact same thing, pay out the same way almost. So I thought that in itself was a really strange thing that I found out through my investigation.
All right, well, thank you, and with that, I'll let you have the last word, and thank you very much for taking time out of your busy evening, both of you.
I appreciate the time, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then we have item 7.1, so I believe that is Kyle's report.
Before council today, we have support for the town's asset management culvert application. This program is offered in partner with RMA, AUMA, and IAMA. As part of this cohort, this will consist of 10 to 12 municipalities working collectively together to improve their asset management practice. This is done by leveraging best practices, information obtained through shared municipal and industry experts. By participating in this program, a minimum outcome would include establishment and development of an internal asset management team, development of an asset management policy, and development of an asset management strategy. This, again, is an application that the town staff will be putting forward with council's approval. Financial impact currently would just be staff time required to participate in the cohort. There could be potential operating costs. However, they're not guaranteed. If they were to happen, they would be minimal, between $500 and $2,000. So with that, we are looking for council's approval for Coaldale to participate in this asset management cohort, again, put on by RMA, AUMA, and IAMA. And I will turn this back to council.
Okay, I'll open the floor to questions. There don't appear to be any, so what's your wishes with this item, council? I'm supportive of this request myself. Councillor Chapman?
Your worship, I think this is a great idea. I'll make a motion to approve the support for Coaldale's application into the asset management cohort.
Here we have a motion by Councillor Chapman, as per recommendation number 1, approve support of Coaldale application into the asset management cohort. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And Councillor Simpson?
In favor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then 7.2, Spencer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. If I may ask for a brief moment just to clarify a bit of information I shared about the pool earlier. I had not quite the correct information on the Aqua Zumba and the Aqua classes in the Coaldale pool. The fee for those is $8 per attendee. That's the same as last year. And because it's a one-off, it was seen as appropriate to have that be a different fee than the drop-in fee. I just wanted to provide that clarification for council. Thank you.
Okay, hopefully that won't impact negatively Councillor Chapman's decision to join Zumba. Okay, and then Spencer, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So the item before you now is Gateways and Corridors Strategy 2020 Capital Project Update. The objective of this item is to present council with an updated proposal for the 4 sites identified in the Gateways and Corridors Strategy that are within or adjacent to the Main Street project area that have initially been considered in the 2020 capital project plan. Council approved the Gateways and Corridors project in the 2020 budget already with a total dollar amount of $45,000. However, this item is being brought back to council as an option to enhance the aesthetic end product of an already approved project at this point. And if the revised landscaping plan as presented is adopted, it would more than fully realize the vision and intent of the Gateways and Corridors strategy for the enhancement of the town's most visible and prominent areas, leaving us with a more attractive and inviting end product. In a moment, I'll invite Maddie McNabb out to present some updated plans for the 4 areas in question. However, I'll just cover a couple of preliminary items before that. So the matter has appeared before council previously. As mentioned, this was a part of the initial budget discussions for the 2020 capital budget. I should also note that a comprehensive engagement process was completed for the Gateways and Corridors strategy in the spring of 2018. And the updated, enhanced design proposals that you'll see this evening are based on that feedback and the vision for that strategy that was approved 2 years ago. So the $45,000 that I've mentioned was initially set aside for the Gateways and Corridors project areas in the initial budget for this year. And that represented a relatively minimal level of enhancement, as an increase in the budget would help to bring the level of enhancement up for the Gateways and Corridors areas to the standard that is being developed within the Main Street project area itself. So again, the $45,000 budget was minimal in its scope and the ability to enhance the areas we'll discuss tonight. What we're looking for is direction from council as to whether an increase in that $45,000 budget would be reasonable to approve, given that we're putting a lot of effort and time into visually enhancing the Main Street area itself. So updated proposals for the Gateways and Corridors areas have been prepared, and an invitational request for quotation has been provided to a number of local landscaping contractors. I'll go through a little bit more detail as to what that RFQ looked like and what the results were, but first I'd like to invite Maddie out to go over what the enhanced plans look like for each of the 4 sites that we'll be requesting a decision on this evening.
Hi, my name is Maddie McNabb of McNabb Studios. Thank you for having me here this evening. I'm happy to be here. I am here to discuss these plans that we have prepared for the beautification project along Highway Avenue. As you can see, Site 1 is north and northwest of the TELUS building. Site 2 and Site 3 is the median and the traffic island that is between Highway Avenue and 19th Avenue. Site 4 we're actually not going to worry about tonight, but we'll also discuss the McCain green space, which is just west of Dairy Queen as well. If you want to go to the next one, Lana. Thank you. So for Site 1 and throughout the whole project, there's a couple important design principles we focused on, those being specifically repetition. Because these planting beds will be viewed from a distance as opposed to close up, we focused on using repetition of mass plantings of certain plants. So you can see there's groups, there's steps, layers of plants there. If you want to go to the next one too, Lana. All of these plants that you see here, there's linden, spruce, pine, 9-bark, creeping juniper, some featherweed grass. They all come recommended by the Old Man Watershed as some of the best plants to plant in prairie urban gardens because they are low maintenance, they're drought tolerant, and if they're not native, which most of them are, then they're very hardy and are happy to thrive in this climate. And Site 2 continues that plant palette with those linden trees. Add in a little bit of variety. We put in some shrubby cinquefoil to add a pop of color here on this median. So there's a concrete skirt around the outer edge, and then a border of rock mulch, and then that planting bed. We made sure that these shrubs were not tall. They're short, and they have enough setback that you can maintain visibility for cars driving on the highway and on 19th Avenue as well. And then this last median that has been called a pork chop because of its shape is even more low maintenance. There's some ornamental rock mulch, some featherweed grass to provide some native and lively feel to it. And there's opportunity for some future signage there. If you want to go to the next one too, Lana. That again, as Spencer mentioned earlier, would be inviting. That's the whole goal of this, is to make this corridor more inviting and enticing to others. If you want to go to the next one, we'll skip Site 4. The last thing I wanted to say about the plant palette is that I chose plants based off of their colors as well. So you can tell they're on the cooler side. They have a lot of blue and violet tones with some complementary green and yellow, which from color study is supposed to be more calming and serene. I didn't want to put anything along the highway that was going to be too distracting. So that's the goal here, is that it's calming and it's inviting. And then for the McCain green space, these are just some simple before and after images to scroll through that show a simple but effective way of how we can improve and put some finishing touches on this area. Spencer, I think that's all I got.
Mr. Mayor, I may ask, would you like to ask Nettie questions that you have as council now? Or shall we get the end of the report and then ask questions in a different manner? What would council's wishes be?
Well, let's get the whole report in, I think, and hopefully everybody has enough retention to remember their questions to Maddie for a couple more minutes.
All right, well, I won't belabor the additional points I have too much, but I do have a few other items to discuss with the RFQ that was provided and another note on the plan itself, for the plan that Maddie had put together. I will mention one of the highlights is that the visual benefit to the plans that you've just seen isn't the only type of benefit that we see with hopefully making a more pleasing feature for this part of the Main Street, or sorry, this part of the Gateways and Corridors areas. There are also functional benefits, such as the area identified as Site 3 in the drawings would help to formalize the 17th Street entrance for eastbound traffic turning right or turning south off of Highway 3 and entering the Main Street area. So this was discussed previously in a Main Street update, that a second entrance to the Main Street area, especially a formalized one, could help to distribute some of the traffic that's trying to turn into the Main Street area beyond just being at the Highway 3, Highway 845 and 20th Avenue intersection, which can be quite challenging at times, as we all know. So there are additional functional benefits to the proposals that you see before you this evening. In terms of the request for quotation, that was by invitation, as the cost estimate prepared to guide the development of the RFQ was well under the financial threshold that requires us to place the request for quotation on the Alberta Purchasing Connection. So a couple of notes on that RFQ. An invitational request for quotations was prepared and sent to 5 landscaping contractors in the Southern Alberta region. The low bidder came in with a quotation of $147,598 plus GST, and that was inclusive of landscaping and irrigation as requested in the request for quotation. The bidder on that was Bluegrass Landscaping out of Lethbridge. And should council wish to approve the proposed amendment to the initial 2020 capital budget for Gateways and Corridors, the project could begin within the next couple of weeks and be finished by mid-September. So ultimately what we're looking at is a proposed increase to the $45,000 initial budget of $130,000 to bring the total budget for this area up to $175,000. And again, the focus here is to create as much of a visually pleasing appeal and enhancement to that area of town, given that it's one of the most visible parts of Coaldale as you drive through or enter into or leave from the Main Street area and through that corridor in Coaldale. I should note that the 2020 capital budget accounted for a Main Street project cost of $4.8 million. And including the bid price and other associated costs, such as engineering, the total cost of Main Street is expected to be $3.4 million. So that would represent a savings of $1.4 million from the budgeted amount for the Main Street project. And as a result, there would be no financial impact to the proposed $175,000 budget for the Gateways and Corridors project that we see here this evening, given that it represents roughly 10% of the savings from the Main Streets project. Again, just to note, before concluding, the enhancement and beautification of the Gateways and Corridors has been a strategic priority of councils for this council term and the previous council term. And a comprehensive engagement process was completed to guide the approval of the Gateways and Corridors strategic plan that was approved in the spring of 2018. So with that, I will finish by asking that although the low bid that was received is $147,598, it's respectfully requested that council approve the amendment to the current 2020 budget for Gateways and Corridors work to a total of $175,000 to account for potential complexities associated with tie-ins for some of the irrigation works necessary for these areas that we've just discussed, and as a general contingency for the project work that's proposed this evening. And with that, I'll conclude my remarks and take any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open the floor to any questions of members of council. Councilor Simpson, do you have any questions?
No, I do not, thank you.
Councilor Chapman?
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Maddie and Spencer, for this presentation. I do like all the examples that you're showing here. With respect to the 7-Eleven property, will that beautification component be a separate budget item altogether, or it'll be separate from this proposal?
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Chapman, excellent question. That will be a separate item, and it's for the simple fact that there are several different interests in terms of how we're trying to achieve different goals with the 7-Eleven property. Until we know things like exactly how certain parts of the property are going to be used for enhancements to the intersectional movements in that area and what future potential signage might look like and different components of that space, certainly we wouldn't want to put significant time and money into landscaping and then having to remove or alter any of that work. So that would very much be a separate item that we could bring back in the fall with significant additional detail to look at that area as a separate item.
Question to Maddie there. Site 4, is that a walking trail that you're planning or proposing in there as well?
That was the concept, but if I'm not mistaken, that is not part of this request for quote.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just to clarify a little bit more, thank you, Maddie, for that. Through the chair to Councillor Chapman, that would be work that is relatively minimal in scope, and the hope would be that we can complete that, that enhancement at that site in-house.
Is that in the Haynes stretch, or which section?
That is not. That's the site that's just northeast of the town office.
Okay.
Councilor Lloyd?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm really excited about this. I think this is what Coaldale has needed for a long time, and commend both of you for your efforts, and Kaylin as well. Thank you so much. You want to make a motion to approve it?
You sure may. And Councilor Lloyd is making the motion to adopt the recommendation to increase the budget to $175,000 for the Gateways and Corridors area. And now I'll open the floor for questions, if there are any. Are there any questions? Councilor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. So just for clarity, for my own sake, the overage in this request is going to come from the savings from the Main Street. Is that correct, Kyle?
Correct. So with the increase in the budget in this, council might find it prudent to make a motion to reduce the Main Street budget by the associated amount so that the two amounts net to zero.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Okay, seeing none and hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and Councilor Simpson?
In favor.
Okay, and that's passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for your work, everybody. Okay, and then we have correspondence. We have item 10.1, 10.2, and 10. Okay, so there might be some action required on some of these. I think we can receive 10.1 and 10.2 for information. Councillor Lloyd? Councillor Lloyd moves 10.1 and 10.2 for information. You can if you like. I'd like to. Okay. All right, we have a motion by Councillor Lloyd to receive all three items for information. Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just with 10.3, the letter from Citizens for a Better Coaldale, I would like our administration to reach out to that organization, and maybe if their group would like to come in and meet with council, and we can explain the transparency that we have had with the Civic Square project, right from a budget over 18 months ago till today, with the whole steps, as well as the undersigned did run for a provincial political party, and one of the quality of life beliefs for that party is they believe in a quality of life requires strong communities through support of recreation, sports, arts, culture. Government can help build these strong communities. So government, that means at all levels to build strong communities, not just provincially or federally. So I'd like it noted that locally, as municipal government, we're trying to build a strong community by putting economic development into our main street.
Okay, and well, I would just comment with regard to 10.3 that I think that some of the facts within that letter are grossly exaggerated with regard to the anticipated cost and that. So I think a dialogue would be helpful to set some of the records straight. And I would suspect that a person running for a provincial office would not expect that they would run for a 4 or 5 year term and then have to go on hiatus for the last 15 months of their term and not see any work done by their mandate if that they were successful in their election. And so I think we could receive those three items for information, and then perhaps you could follow up with a motion that could capture what you would like done then. Okay, so at this point, unless there's any other discussion, is there any other questions or discussion, Councillor Simpson?
Sorry, I did not hear Jason's response. Was that a yes?
Well, we haven't voted yet. No, he asked a question about whether administration would reach out and dialogue with the.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then. Okay.
But is he going to make that motion after? Because that just makes me decide whether I'm going to. Because as long as that motion's going to be made too, I'm in favor. But if it's not, then I would not be in favor.
All right, and we have Councillor Holm.
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the things I'm just wondering is, where's our communication person with the town? I know a lot of us aren't really connected with social media. Some are. Some of us are probably more than others. But I guess some of these questions and some of the things that did hit social media, I'm thinking that town administration, if we had a communication officer, could have put a lot of the fire out before it kind of started rolling and people making up information. So I'm wondering, just through to our CAO, can we have a point person that will actually put some of these fires out before we get roasted? And then just kind of on the side of all that, being the number of good ideas that did come out of all of this, I'm going to guess that the election in 2021 is going to be quite robust, because it looks like we're going to have a lot of people running for council.
CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to Councillor Holmes' comments. We do have a communications person. A lot of the documents that contain in a very well laid out manner, those are on social media. Unfortunately, a lot of the people who are weighing in on comments aren't reading the documents that contain the correct information. And there's some people that appear to deliberately want to distort information because it's a lot more fun to try to pick at the town. So from a resource perspective, we don't have the resources to go trolling people on social media. We do the best we can. A lot of information is on our website. We do interviews with the media. We've never spent more time than we have this term producing detailed budget documents which explain not only the numbers and how it fits into the whole, but also a very detailed business plan. All of this is unprecedented attention to detail that we've spent as an organization trying to get this information out. And we can only do so much. Social media is a funny thing. People, they're more interested in, trying to be provocative sometimes than seek the truth. And I don't really know what the answer is. We have participated in different Facebook forums in the past, but we don't work 24 hours a day, monitoring what happens online. So I'll have to put a little bit, more thought into your question on, what it is that we can do. I think this is something that every level of government across the world is trying to figure out how to find that right balance of getting information out with kind of a 24/7, frenzy known as social media. So that's a great question. I don't have any more I can say other than what I just did, but we do have a communication person, and we can brainstorm and we can look at where we can get some more information out. With respect to the Civic Square project in particular, some of the details that are good questions, like, well, who's the development group, and what's the total cost, and what's the we're probably a few weeks away from being able to share that publicly, only because we're dealing with a third-party business interest. So until we have that signed agreement, development agreement before council, we're not able to disclose any more than we already have. But I think it would be a great idea, not long after that agreement is vetted by council, that there could be a follow-up where those details kind of get rounded out, because the number seems to get bigger by the week on what Civic Square costs, and 10 million seems to be the popular number, when in reality it's closer to 3 million, 3.5, depending on some decisions council may want to make with respect to the outdoor space or the exterior. But that's about a third of what the tall tale has become. So thank you.
The one thing I have is there any way that on our social media we can push out how to contact a counselor, so that when things like this come on social media feeds, people can find a way to reach out to us and find some of the facts?
Karen, you can take that under advisement. And, yeah. I think anybody in Coaldale that doesn't think that they can reach out to members of council are quite new to the community, I would suspect, because I don't know any member of council that isn't available for that access and whatnot. And we don't hide or anything like that, so it's there. And so, anyway, I think good discussion, and we have a motion by Councillor Lloyd, and we have assurance that Councillor Avery will make a secondary motion. So the motion by Councillor Lloyd is to receive item 10.1, 10.2, and 10.3 for information, and I'll call the question. All in favor? And Councillor Simpson?
In favor.
Okay, and then Councillor Avery?
Motion that we invite the citizens for a better Coaldale in for a meeting for clarity, so we can explain to them the transparency that we've had throughout this whole process with Civic Square, but not until everything is finalized, so we can give them the dollar figures and the company and everything that the town has gone with. So I'm going to recommend first or second meeting in September.
And with regard, there's one kind of pending item in your letter. They asked for a plebiscite and that we stop any capital projects. And what is your feeling about responding to that?
I don't feel at this time that we should be stopping any capital projects.
So would you
So we
accept
need to,
friendly in
Yep.
your motion that we decline the request for a plebiscite and a cessation of capital projects as well?
yes, I would.
Okay. All right. So Luana, do you have that motion? Is there any discussion? Councillor Chapman?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Just I have it on something else.
Okay. All right. So We'll call the question. All in favor? And Councillor Simpson?
In favor.
Okay, thank you. And then Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just on, I don't have the numbers here, but the letter to elected officials from Minister Madhu, that's just follow up on previous announcement that was done, especially from Rick McIver, who announced dollars for municipalities for roads, local roads, bridges, and wastewater, I think it was.
Well, I don't believe that's quite accurate. I believe that that is a overall $500 million expansion of the MSI funding, and I believe that increase in MSI funding is to allow municipalities more flexibility to necessarily undertake shovel-ready projects that they might have in their inventory there.
Okay, thank you. Just a follow-up letter regarding the proposed change of gazetted speed highway.
Oh, well, we're not on information.
Oh, sorry.
But we can go there now if you want it to. I think we dealt with the 10.
Are we on information items?
Yeah, so we're in 11 now, if that's what you would wish. Okay, so then you have a question about anything with, you were going to ask about 11.3, is that right?
That is correct. And those speed changes on 845 are already completed. There are some speed zone changes.
Spencer, please.
Mayor, through the chair to Councillor Chapman, I don't believe they have been completed yet, although I could be incorrect. On my way to work this morning through that area, I don't recall that they've been completed. However, again, they could have been done sometime today. Typically, these things take a little bit longer with working with transportation on matters such as this, but I'll have to check tomorrow.
I traveled through there on the weekend, and actually even the week before they were already established in those zone changes. So.
Excellent news.
So Councillor Pauls, are you able to sleep in a little bit better with the? No? No? Oh, too bad.
And I don't think anybody's seen the damn signs.
So more Spencer can talk to transportation and ask for more visible speed signs maybe. Okay, so Helen? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I should mention, just for clarification's sake, that this certainly isn't the only improvement looking to be made at that location. This is a part of a much bigger process where the trails and pathways are being expanded substantially this year. One of the components that is critical to making sure that there's connection between the east and west side of Highway 845 at 30th Avenue on the east side and Cottonwood Drive on the west side is creating a safe and usable connection by way of flashing crossings and zebra crossings on the paint side of things, and then pathways that lead right up to that crosswalk that's going to be in place there by the end of this summer. So this is a part of a suite of safety enhancements that are being made in that location to ensure a good connection in that area of town.
Great, that's a good note to have there. Thank you, Spencer. Good clarity. Okay, so then we are at 11, and so we have items 11, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But I think the update, the Main Street update would be important to go through here. So I think we could skip down to 11.4 and just get that update because I think it's a very good update.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So as you've just mentioned, the purpose of this update is to provide council with new information regarding the Main Street revitalization project that is currently underway. The project continues to go well. Of course, there have been a number of updates prior to this, and being that this is the last council meeting of the summer, and the project is certainly going to continue through the summer, we thought it important to share some key highlights that we can look forward to in the coming weeks. So those highlights would be that, first and foremost, the intersection at 17th Street and 20th Avenue is expected to be open to traffic this week, by the end of this week. The section of 20th Avenue between 17th and 18th Street is expected to be open to traffic the week of July 20th, so that would be next week. And when that section opens, there will be no on-street parking, and traffic will be one lane in each direction, as it typically would be. However, Telstra is going to be putting information out, and the town will certainly assist with that, to ask travelers, ask vehicles to not exceed 10 kilometers per hour, because we certainly don't want the base that's been or that will be prepared in that area to be damaged in any way. But the additional benefit to having vehicle traffic in that area sooner is that it helps to compact the soils and the sub-base for the future pavement that will be in that location once it's open to traffic again. So that's a welcome level of assistance from the driving public if they're able to travel through that area slowly. Underground construction for the section of 20th Avenue between 18th Street and 19th Street is expected to begin the week of July 20th as well. And as a final note on this update, the Main Street stakeholders have been reached out to, and discussions have been going well regarding the design and coloration of the bulb outs that we discussed at the previous council meeting. So everything is going well, no major incidents thus far, and we certainly commend the work that Telstra has put forward and continue to have an excellent working relationship with them as the project moves on. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. Is there any questions of Spencer or on 11.4? Councillor Pauls?
When did this get passed? Because I just don't recall that we ever did pass that.
Through the chair to Councillor Pauls, you'll have to be more specific. I'm sorry, I'm not
Well,
recalling what you're referring to.
Where you want to put your new pathway, like you want it on 30th, on the south side of 30th Avenue, right?
Through the chair, that's my understanding, yes.
So did we vote that in?
If I may, and our CAO may have additional information, but through the chair to Councillor Pauls, my understanding is that that was part of the 2020 capital budget that would have been approved, and the 2019 to 2021 capital plan, the pathways alignments that are a part of what's occurring now.
Were they specifically said where they were going?
For that portion of the discussion, I might hand the mic off to CAO Hastings.
What?
Through the chair, just add a little bit of extra detail. You're talking about 30th Avenue? Is that what we're talking about? Or?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not actually going to widen the road at this part of the phase of the project, such that you have to bury a ditch to get the extra depth that you need, or the width you need for the pathway. There's going to be those plastic bollards that are going to be affixed on the existing road surface that's there with a painted line that designates where the pedestrians can go. So it's still going to be the same street, except there's going to be a line for pedestrians. To increase the width of that roadway triggers, $1 million+ in infrastructure. This is a cost-effective short-term option to separate vehicles from pedestrians, if that helps answer the question.
Are you going to drop the road down then?
Not at this time.
Well, if you go wider, then everything gets sharper. It's just like the thing on the, you just, how are we supposed to get out of our driveways?
Yeah. It's a really good question, and that's why the cost to widen that road is so much more money, because it requires a whole redesign. All we're doing is painting a line on the road that's there, and that's inside that line is where the designated pedestrian route will be. So we're not actually doing any road work. We're painting a line and then putting some plastic posts right onto the existing street. So all the elevations stay the same. The width of the roadway stays the same.
Okay.
If that helps.
Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Spencer, for the Main Street update. And as I map out Coaldale, I noticed that Main Street project is going very well. And going into the businesses, I'm hearing that there's great communication between the town and the businesses. So, you know, as I say, as I map it out, I really appreciate that.
Good, all right. So we have a motion, do you have a motion to accept all those 4 items for information? Councillor Lloyd?
Information items.
Okay, we have that motion by Councillor Lloyd to receive 11, 1, 2, 3, and 4 for information. All in favor? And Councillor Simpson?
All are in favor.
Okay, thank you. All right, and that concludes the public portion of the meeting. So a motion to go into close the meeting. Councillor Chapman makes a motion to go into closed meeting. All in favor? And Councillor Simpson? Sampson? Okay, thank you. And you're going to stay